The reflex arc. The reflex arc is an example of inborn behavior, and I'm just going to explain now the different nerve cells that are necessary here. And what we have is the point that I'm trying to make is that reflexes, there are certain reflexes that do not involve the brain. So the reflex arc, that is an example of a so-called spinal reflex. Because it only involves the spinal cord, that's the spinal cord over here. And there is also something called versus so-called cranial reflexes. And they involve the brain. Okay, so how does this now work? And I'm going to label you now the different nerve cells that are the different neurons that are required here. Okay. There are two examples. Oh, let me first explain. There are two examples of a reflex arc. One could be the pain withdrawal reflex, and that's the one that I'm showing you over here, or the so-called the knee jerk reflex. That's when you hit your knee with a little hammer, you start to kick out. Okay, that both of them are spinal reflexes. And what happens over here is the following. Over here you have a stimulus, of course, a stimulus. Okay, and these black pads that you see over here, these are our receptors. Okay, that's a receptor. So that's a nerve cell, a neuron. And then they pick up the stimulus over here and send a nerve signal to the screen neuron over here. And the screen neuron, that is our sensory neuron. I don't know, can you see this on light gray? Sensory neuron. And the sensory neuron brings the nerve signal to the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord. So spinal cord is part of the central nervous system. Okay, central nervous system. You might want to write this out. Okay, the sensory neuron carries the signals to the central nervous system, to the spinal cord, and therefore also has a different name. That is an example of an afferent neuron. It's afferent with an A. Afferent. Okay, that's supposed to be E over here. Afferent. Okay, that's an afferent. It carries it to the central nervous system. Over here, a little bit difficult. D. That's letter D. You see this purple neuron over here. I don't know how I'm supposed to label this because it's white on white. Okay, that is the one, the purple one. That is known as an interneuron. Neuron. I've also read somewhere some people call it a relay neuron. Okay, and you see that the relay neuron carries the signal forward to the blue nerve cell over here, and this blue nerve cell that goes away, it directs the signal away from the central nervous system. That is known as a motor neuron, also known as it's efferent. Okay, so with an E, and the afferent over here it's written with an A, of course, right? It's going away, and it's an efferent neuron. And the red structure over here, that's the muscle, of course. And the muscle is known as known as an effector. Yeah, so it has an effect. Yeah, so the efferent neuron stimulates, tells the effector to do something. Okay. Now that is, so what do we actually learn? So how many nerve cells do we actually see over here? We see a receptor, we see a sensory neuron, that's number 2. We see an interneuron, that's number 3. We see a motor neuron, that is number 4. So I see 4 different nerve cells over here, okay? What do you remember? You have to remember that a nerve cell always carries the signal only into one direction over here, okay? So it is not like this, that the signal goes back and forth on this one nerve cell. No, but if you want to go back, you need a separate nerve cell, a separate neuron. I should not say nerve cell because you see these are nerves here, okay? And nerves are actually made of several individual nerve cells or neurons, okay? But the point is that the signal turns around here. Now, how many synapses do you see? So what's a synapse? A synapse, that is where 2 neurons join together. And you have a synapse between the receptor and the sensory neuron. So that's one over here. You got one over here, and you see a little gap over here. Now, that's kind of difficult to see white on white. Okay, that's the one that I'm erasing right now. Wow, cool. There's a little gap over. There's a little gap over there. Okay. Over here we have a little gap. That's a synapse. So it's 1, 2, 3, and there is also over here. We don't call this a synapse, but we call it a motor end plate. but actually this is like a synapse. It's a little gap between the nerve cell and the muscle. It's called the motor end plate, where the nerve cell stimulates the muscles, okay? So, and that is basically the one way of drawing it, and but the more common way probably looks like this, okay? So, and basically that what you see over here, that is the cross section through the spinal cord, okay? That's the spinal cord. And you're going to see that essentially it's pretty much the same thing that I've done right now. This here is the back side, the one here, that's the dorsal side. And that's the back, and this is the ventral side. Ventral side, it's the belly side, so to say, okay? And now let's have a look here how this works. We have over here somewhere I don't know, I'm going to draw a candle right now. That's supposed to be a candle flame, okay, where you touch a hot candle. And what we have now is we have over here, these are supposed to be our receptors in our finger, okay? And these receptors now, they pick up the heat, and so, I don't know, do I have to label this? You just make a line and say receptor, okay? And then I have a little synapse, and then I have over here a nerve cell, which goes all the way in here, and that's now the blue one. This one here is called the dorsal root ganglion. Now that's kind of bad because first of all, you are now confusing the labeling lines with the nerve cells. So that's the dorsal root ganglion, dorsal. Of course, because we're on the back side, root ganglion. And the dorsal root ganglion contains the nerve cell's body with the nucleus and so on, okay? And then over here, it goes all the way over here. So that is, yeah, it goes in here. And then we are entering the spinal cord. We're now entering the central nervous system. And what happens now is it goes in here. And over here, we have a synapse, okay? So this one, let's label this first. This is the sensory neuron. I'm not going to label it because you already know it, but you should label it. You have to know it. It's the afferent one, okay? It goes in here, and in here we have another neuron. So I'm going to draw now the nerve cell body over here. It's going all the way in here, okay? And so you see this little gap over here. That is, of course, a synapse. I mean, the reason why I'm labeling this is because I remember there was once a multiple choice question or some short answer question where they ask, where are the synapses here, right? And then what we have on the other side over here again is another nerve cell body with short dendrites and the nerve neuron going out, difficult to draw, okay, to the motor end plates. And now this is supposed to be the muscle. Okay, that is supposed to be the muscle. Okay, these are supposed to be the muscle fibers. Okay, so the signal goes out over here. So we have over here, this is our interneuron over here. Okay, it's the sensor, it's the afferent one. That's the efferent one. That's the relay, or how shall I say, the interneuron. Okay, and now you might wonder, what is this butterfly-shaped structure on the inside over here? That is the gray matter. Okay, the gray matter, it actually looks gray. Matter. Okay, and the outside of here, that is the white matter. Okay. And yeah, that is an example of that is the reflex arc. Okay, so you've got the receptors over here, you've got the afferent sensory neurons, you've got the interneurons or relay neurons, you have an efferent neuron over here, you have the effector over here, which is the muscle. Okay, and that's it. Okay, you gotta know this, and you gotta be able to draw this. Okay, and of course you have a whole bunch of synapses here, little gaps. Yeah, over here is also synapse. Okay, that was it. All the best.